pointing out that my trousers are purple, not red. So I wasn't quite sure how to introduce myself tonight, because I think of myself as a scientist. Until recently I was a researcher, but now I actually work as a freelance science communicator. And what that means is that I spend roughly half my time talking or writing about science, and the other half trying to persuade someone to pay me for it. I always knew I was going to do something to do with science. I was lucky growing up. I didn't have any of that science isn't for girls thing, because my mum was a microbiologist. It wasn't all good though. It did mean that the 5-second rule was never accepted in my house. But we used to watch a lot of TV together, and we really liked those shows that have labs in them, you know, things like Bones and Silent Witness. But my mum would get really cross if the science, or the health and safety in them, wasn't up to scratch. So our neighbours would quite regularly hear on a Saturday night, "Fasten your lab coat. That reaction doesn't happen that quickly, and don't go drilling into that skull covered in suspicious pink mould without wearing a mask." Okay, that last one might have only happened once, but you get the idea. So I came to Cambridge to study natural sciences, thinking that I was going to be a chemist, but halfway through I switched and became a psychologist because I discovered my love of brains. The other option was zombie, but red's not really my colour, so the whole blood-stained look just wasn't really going to work. The funniest thing about being a psychologist is the reactions you get when you tell someone at a party that that's what you do. The most common reaction is usually, "So can you tell what I'm thinking then?" To which I have two options when I'm going to respond. The first one is to explain patiently that no, psychic studies isn't actually part of our course. The second is slightly more fun probably, and is just to say, "Yes, and you disgust me." The second most common thing that I get when I tell someone I study psychology is them slightly confusing it with psychiatry and saying, "Oh, so are you analysing me then? What do you think? You think I'm crazy, don't you?" To which, in Cambridge at least, the answer is normally something along the lines of, "Well, you did just tell me you've spent the last 10 years of your life studying the mating habits of prehistoric cephalopods, so yes?" But it seems like psychology is quite a sort of in science at the moment. There's lots of it around in the media, but that doesn't mean that they're actually any good at reporting it. Because a report's only as good as the headline that's put on it. And that's what they seem to want, a headline. And that's not always how science works. But the way you see it in the paper, it's always, "Parsnips make you a genius," or "Living in Cambridge causes Alzheimer's." And I can see why they do it though, because the way science really works, it just doesn't quite grab you in the same way. PhD student spends 3 years to discover that new drug has absolutely no effect. Doesn't really make you want to buy a newspaper, does it? But recently, scientists have seemed to be getting their own back a little bit. I don't know how many of you are on Twitter, but if you are, you may have seen a hashtag that trended recently. It was hashtag overlyhonestmethods. And basically, a load of scientists decided to write things that you could never put in the methods section of a paper, but that anyone who's ever done research can completely empathise with. So I wrote down a few of my favourites to share with you tonight. The samples incubated at ambient temperature in a remote border customs office for 5 months. This one I can particularly relate to as a psychologist. Participants were chosen at random via begging, threatening and bribery in the student union. And from experience, my chocolate brownies are the best form of bribery, and if you guys laugh enough tonight, I might even bring you some next time. We added glucose to acetaldehyde for reasons I missed while learning Japanese numbers from the cute exchange student. The Eppendorf tubes were shaken like a Polaroid picture until that part of the song was done. Another one I can particularly relate to here, and I think most people probably will. We did experiment 2 because we didn't know what the fuck to make of experiment 1. Probably my favourite because this one's actually true, and it was in a 1978 paper. Lizards were collected by hand, noose and BB rifle. So being a scientist might not be seen as the most glamorous of jobs, but I love it, and it could be worse. My boyfriend is a shit engineer. And by that, I don't mean he's bad at his job. I mean, his life's work is studying shit, poo, doo-doo, whatever you want to call it. His mission in life is to find better ways of emptying pit latrines in third world countries. Did you know that by the year 2020, 1 billion people will live in slums, and they'll be producing 30 million tonnes of feces a year, and most of that goes into holes in the ground, and most of that into the sea or rivers. Yeah, kind of killed the mood, didn't it? Not laughing so much now, are you? It makes brilliant dinner party conversation as well. So what do? Oh, well, I'm developing a pump to remove shit from holes in the ground in third world countries. Fascinating. Would you like some more lasagna? Oh, yes, please. In fact, we're investigating whether we can add maggots to the pits to eat the shit, so we don't have to pump it out at all. Oh, wow. Chocolate mousse for dessert? He came back from some field work in Uganda recently, and it wasn't until I'd been using it for 2 weeks that he told me he dropped his laptop while he was on the job, if you know what I mean. I cleaned it, he said. Yeah. So he's seriously considering lying next time someone asks him and picking a more socially acceptable profession, like a parking warden maybe, or an MP. This has been my first time at Bride Club. I'm Ginny Smith. Thank you so much for listening. You've been a lovely audience.